Cinema is the most beautiful form of art that man has ever created. You don't agree? Well, let's look at a painting, for example, a beautiful one from Leonardo da Vinci. One of the most artistic individuals of all time, created countless visually stunning works of art in painting, sculpting, and engineering alike. Now, a movie is like a combination of all three coming together and then moving constantly like a well-oiled machine. Well, the good ones are anyway. The bad ones are more like a lab experiment gone wrong. Sometimes, even worse, they get infected with the Mickey Mouse virus. But that's a story for another day. A movie is composed of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of individual paintings put together mindfully by the cinematographer and director in a way that coincides with the emotions that they want people to feel. And they do this on a scene-by-scene, shot-by-shot, frame-by-frame basis, which requires a meticulous level of strategy, engineering, painting, and sculpting of the real world around you into something that can be altered and stitched into a much larger fabric. And on top of all that, they need a story to tell that's actually engaging and as mindfully crafted as the visuals are, all eventually coming together into one artistic expression of man that we call a movie. All of us youngsters, we all want that film look right now. That's what's poppin'. That's what's in. We want that vintage, nostalgic style footage, that VHS looking footage, that old 70s kind of Western looking movie style footage. That's what we're looking for. And Dehancer here is trying to provide that. Now, they have reached out to me and they want me to create this review, and I'm going to provide you guys with a link in the description where you guys can get 10% off of your first Dehancer purchase on any of their plugins that you want to use. Now, with that said, this is going to be completely honest, completely transparent. You guys don't have to worry about that around here. We're going to get completely down and dirty with Dehancer, install it, see if it's easy to use, the whole 9 yards. And does it look like film, right? There are already baked into DaVinci Resolve and baked into Adobe Premiere kind of, film grain effects that you can put on. And DaVinci 19 just came out with their Film Look Creator, which I'm assuming is kind of similar to Dehancer. So once we get our first impressions over on the computer, we'll see kind of, the comparison between the two. What's the difference between DaVinci's Film Look Creator, Dehancer, which one is better? And is Dehancer something that I'm actually going to use and recommend to people? Let's find out. So what exactly is Dehancer? How does it work, right? Dehancer is a film emulation plugin. That means it's going to be a tool that integrates itself into DaVinci Resolve's UI, right? So it's not a separate software that you have to launch. It's not a separate program. It bakes itself into DaVinci Resolve. And what you can go ahead and do once it's in there is, instead of having to create these super complex trees of 15 to 20 nodes in your color page, all you have to do is just make the color space transform. That's like the first step of your color grade. And then once you do that, you add Dehancer onto the second node. And then basically all of your color grading takes place from there. Now, all of the marketing and stuff like that tells you that this is a film emulation software. You can replicate, different Kodak film looks and stuff and really hone in your colors. And not just the colors, add effects like grain and vignette and halation and bloom and all these things. The footage really, really looks similar to film, guys. I mean, it's pretty sick. And FYI, everything you've been watching in this entire video has, of course, been graded with Dehancer. So there you go. Now, all you have to do to get Dehancer set up is go to their website, go to products, and you can select which version of the platform that you want. Obviously, I recommend just going with the Pro version because that's the full suite of all the tools and plugins that they offer all in one. I really don't know why you would want to just get like one of the individual effects. Go ahead and just get the whole Pro suite. Now, you can opt for a free trial, or you can just buy the full license straight out the gate. Totally your choice. And if you're watching this video sometime after it's been put out, go ahead and check my description. There should be a discount code for you guys down there. So once you go through the standard installation process, you're going to take the activation key that it gives you, and now you'll plug that in, and boom, Dehancer is now baked into DaVinci Resolve. All you have to do is just add it to the second node after you make the color space transform. Now, before I actually started using Dehancer and felt comfortable enough to kind of really dive in and do a color grade with it, I had a couple questions. The first thing was, this is marketed as a film emulation software or plugin, right? So does that mean I can entirely replace my whole color grading process and just use Dehancer to grade my footage completely? Or do I have to grade the footage completely and then Dehancer is just only going to kind of like spice it up with some film effects, right? I want to know, can I really add the different color profiles from Dehancer itself? Or is it just like adding different film emulation effects? Because if I can use Dehancer for that, that means that I don't have to learn these super complex, webs of 15 to 20 different nodes just to create a good looking color grade. I do currently have a really complex node tree system like preset, and I can like apply it to all my videos and all my footage, but I'm not capable of setting something like that up without kind of a helping hand, without a little bit of a tutorial or something like that. So Dehancer might allow me to get really specific with the kind of look that I'm going for, and allow some amateur like me to actually get really good looking grades without getting super complicated. So that would be ideal. That's kind of question number one. Question number two is kind of a follow-up to that. DaVinci Resolve itself has built into it the Film Look Creator, which by name kind of sounds very similar to what Dehancer is trying to provide. So I want to know, is it worth using the Film Look Creator? Is it worth using Dehancer to completely like handle my color grading? And which of the two is better? Film Look Creator is built into Resolve already. Dehancer you have to purchase and install, third-party style. So I'm hoping that there's a bit of a difference between the two, and there's some actual like value to acquiring Dehancer over just using what's built in. And of course, if you're an editor on Resolve, you know that there's things like film grain and vignette, and all these things are built in as sort of like fusion effects and things like that that you can apply, and they've been in Resolve forever. So what is the difference between, those effects there and what you can do with Dehancer? Now, the answer I have kind of right out the gate is, number one, it keeps everything to do with color grading and film emulation all in one place. And number two, when it comes to things like applying grain, bloom, vignette, all these different effects, you can get way, 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 way more manual and fine-tuned about the corrections that you're making with Dehancer compared to just dragging and dropping like the film grain effect onto your adjustment clip. With Dehancer, I can actually go in and select exactly the type of grain. Do I want 8mm, 16mm, whatever? Which camera or which film stock do I want the color profiles to replicate, things like that. So these are ways you can get really like a bit more manual about the corrections that you're making compared to just dragging and dropping pre-installed effects that DaVinci already offers. So that's kind of like my understanding of it before having jumped in. But now let's jump in. So I went ahead and recorded two nice little clips of my car outside. The sun's in a perfect spot right now. I shot right into the sun, so we're gonna get tons of like halation, contrast, all the beautiful cinematic buzzwords are going to apply to this very simple shot. That sunlight, guys, I'm a fucking sucker for some warm sunlight. Now, this color grade right here is that super complex, like 15 node tree that I was telling you guys about before. This is that complicated thing that I set up and I can apply to all my footage, but I'm not capable of just creating this from scratch without some type of tutorial. So obviously, while I think this looks fantastic and very technically sound, I want to be able to do something that looks just as good with Dehancer, and that way I can get really like specific about the color profiles and the tones that I'm trying to hit. If I want that orange and teal look, or if I want more of that like Private Ryan look, or if I want more of like a horror film kind of look. Right now, with this little node tree system I have, I'm kind of stuck to just like that teal and gold Hollywood look. So with all that out the way, this third little set of the clips here is what we're actually going to grade with Dehancer. So let's hop in. All right, so we're here on the color page, and as you can see, this again is the standard B-raw file log footage with no color grading, no color transform, nothing. Now, this is the complex node tree that I was telling you guys I can't replicate to save my life. Now, it starts off super simple and super basic with the color space transform and the white balance correction, and then it kind of gets into a whole clusterfuck of a web that I can't replicate without a tutorial. So learning something like this is really complex, really tedious, and kind of just like, I spend too much time actually doing, work on the editing page for me to dedicate the same level of time to the color page as well. I want my color page stuff to be kind of quick, snappy, just over and done with, right? So that takes us obviously to using Dehancer, which took my node tree from this down to this. And obviously it's not the simple like 2-node procedure that I was hoping it would be. And I think you can go about it that way. You can just do a color space transform in the beginning and then Dehancer right as your next node, straight to the output. But I don't recommend doing that because you're going to get a really unpolished, unrefined result. This is the best kind of method that I found that pro colorists were using, was this kind of 6-node structure here. Creates a nice simple little tree, and it's very straightforward what each of the nodes are for, right? So you have your initial color space transform, you have your white balance, saturation, separation, Dehancer, and then obviously your final color space back to 709. And it's like these two guys here, you don't even have to use them, right? They're just there if you want to really get like fine tuning about things, but you can just kind of ignore them if you want. You can just do boom, 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 and then boom. So let me run through real quick and explain what these nodes are doing, because before we actually get into using Dehancer itself, we have to set up a few things first so that Dehancer has like the proper foundation to work upon. So the first thing we're doing, node number 1, is a color space transform, and all you have to do is go to effects up here, and then you'll scroll until you see color space transform. You drag and drop that right onto node number 1, and then you'll get these inputs that pop up. Don't be intimidated by all this stuff here. All we have to do is worry about this top window. We're going to do input color space, and you're going to select the camera that you're using. So it might be a Canon, it might be an ARRI, it might be a Blackmagic. I'm using a Blackmagic Pocket, so that's what I'm selecting for both input color space and input gamma as well. Now for the output color space and the output gamma, you want to go with DaVinci Wide Gamut and DaVinci Intermediate. That's just going to make things look really nice and clean. Nice, clean foundation to work on. And from there, you want to go ahead and apply another color space transform to the final node and then mirror what I have here. You're going to go ahead and do DaVinci Wide Gamut and DaVinci Intermediate. You're basically taking the output of the first color space transform, and now we're making that the input of the last one. And then for the output color space, we're going 709 and gamma 2.4 because we want this to end up in a conversion of Rec 709 before it ends up with the final delivery. So that's a lot of blah, 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 right? So we have a color space transform into wide gamut, and the wide gamut profile is going to allow us to really make those Dehancer edits, right? Now, once we make those Dehancer edits, we close up that wide gamut and return it back to a standard 709 profile. That's what we're actually ending up with. That's how you get that polished result, is doing all these little intricate steps. Now, for someone like me, right, this is still a little bit of intricacy, right? But I can totally wrap my head around it, no problem. Something like this is, this is a nightmare, and I need the tutorial every single time I want to recreate this. Luckily, I don't have to because I can have my gallery up here and I can just have it pre-saved and I can drag and drop it. And then I have to go ahead and basically go into the, not the balance node. Yeah, I'll go right into the balance node here and adjust my wheels to actually get that warmer or more green or more orange look, whatever you want to go for. But all this other stuff that comes after that, I really have like no idea what it's doing and why I would need to adjust it. This is like another, I'm just so confused. I don't even want to try to explain. However, this, it just makes perfect sense to me. It's very sensible. It's very structured. It's very boom, boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And each step is like a clear, distinct step. So I like this approach a lot better. And yeah, round of applause Dehancer for kind of knocking down my node tree. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for very eagerly, this is where we can actually apply Dehancer to the tree. So let's click on the Dehancer node. We'll scroll all the way down, and you should see now Dehancer at the bottom as a tool within the software here. And you can see when we first apply it, it's going to give us a very over washed out intense film look. So we can go ahead and obviously adjust that and fine tune it how we want it to look. So over here on the side, we have all of our different tools that are within Dehancer and all the different kind of effects we can add and adjust. Now, the first thing you want to do is go ahead and select your input because that's going to give you like the proper color space to work in. So in order to match the color space transforms that we previously made, we're going to select our source here as DaVinci Wide Gamut. And now this is the selling point of the software right here. This is why you get Dehancer, is because you can literally go through and select through all these different film stocks right here. You have Kodak Portrait, you have Fujifilm stocks, you have Polaroid stocks, you have everything that's existed in the film industry. You can go ahead and apply that stock to your grade. And I think I'm gonna go with Kodak Portrait 400 just because it's a very standard film that everyone shoots with in like a 35mm camera, something like that. You guys all know what Portrait 400. Now, once you select your film stock, you can go ahead and adjust the push-pull. That's going to kind of change the color variation, the color profile of the film stock a little bit. So whichever kind of like color that film is known to sort of bring out, if it's more of a green tinted film or if it's more of like a warm sunset kind of film, that is going to be really brought out by the push-pull slider here, or you can kind of take it away a little bit. And now you can see here, if we disable this, we actually take away the film grain and the film stock for a second, so we can actually go to the print section here. Now on the print section here, I don't understand this too well, but I just know that I want to select Kodak 2383, and that's going to give me that standard like high dynamic range Hollywood kind of punch to the image that it was lacking before. You guys can see how that just came through. And you guys can actually see when we went and made that change to the print profile here, kind of changed the look of our Kodak Portrait 400 a little bit. We can push and pull it still, but it's not as oversaturated as it was before, I guess. So let's look at some different stocks and just see what different looks look like. So here is Kodak Ektachrome, which is a popular profile people use. Here's Gold 200, which I've shot out of my film cameras tons of times before. We've also got some Fuji profiles. Here's Velvia 100. You see that really brings out like a nice icy blue kind of cold feeling. Push and pull that a bit, see what it looks like. So this is really affecting our exposure here, the push pull with this one. Here's Provia, which is a bit warmer. And again, this is really affecting our exposure here. So I'm curious why that wasn't the case before we had Portra 400, it wasn't really affecting the exposure that heavily. So this is a bit different. So I'm not sure exactly how that's working. And this is exactly what you guys have to go in here and do. Get in here, play around with these sliders, ask yourself these questions, figure out, tinker around, how does all this stuff work? Because it's not just like you press a button and you get this film emulation, right? This is a professional software. DaVinci Resolve itself is a professional software, so I'm assuming that if you're even on this platform editing in the first place, you know, you have a good thing going on upstairs, hopefully. Is it the easiest thing in the world? No, it's not. It takes a little bit of studying and research to realize like what all these different things mean. And if you're not familiar with film photography or film stocks or anything like that, all of this is going to be completely foreign to you. You're not going to know what the difference between Kodak Portra and Kodak Gold and all this stuff, right? So in that sense, there is a bit of like previous expertise that's required to kind of use a plugin like this and really know what you're doing. But if you are starting from scratch, you know nothing about color grading, you know nothing about film emulation, and you're an editor with DaVinci Resolve, but you just like not a color specialist, but you want to get into it. You want to learn color grading, you want to keep it nice and simple for yourself, and you're into that old vintage kind of look, I think Dehancer is going to be way easier to learn and keep things kind of more uniform for you, kind of everything all in one place. All of your color grading can just take place by simply pasting this tree. Once you've done this one time, you can copy this and save it. And now you can have it appear over here in your gallery. You can paste it, boom, all these things will pop up, and then you can just jump straight to Dehancer and get to work. Now, all of your color grading and everything is just going to be right in this little window up here, and you can say goodbye to all these, you know, complicated adjustments and tools down here. In a nutshell, that is the value I see with this platform. That is where I think it really shines, is taking someone that wants to get serious about color grading, but maybe they just don't want to dedicate the next 2 years of their life to it, right? They want to pick it up within a few weeks, and they want to be able to get different looks and really understand like, okay, I can get these old vintage film looks, and this is the difference between a Fujifilm look and a Kodak film look. These are things that you have to learn that have nothing to do with Dehancer, right? You just have to know these things to kind of feel familiar with the platform. That's pretty cool. Check this out. They actually have a Fujifilm Instax film profile. That's pretty sick. So this expand section here is where we can now really fine tune our contrast and our HDR, right? So once you select your film stock, you want to come in here, and now you can really fine tune the shadows, the black point. This is like adjusting your lows and your gain over here as if you were using these over here. Now we're doing it with this expand section here. We can really fine tune how much contrast we want in the film. And quick tip, guys, you can actually pull up your scopes here down at the bottom, and you can just make sure that you're not clipping any highlights. You can see here that how those scopes change as we adjust. We don't want to be clipping highlights. So you want to bring it right about to the 896 level, and that's a solid look. And you want to have nothing going below 0 here, so we'll lift our blacks kind of right above the 0 line, keep them from getting crushed. And that's going to give, well, the reds are a little lower than everything else, so maybe we'll crush the reds just a bit. I think that gives a really nice, like, high contrast look. And you can see here, if we go full screen, our grain is a little bit too aggressive. The grain is a little bit too strong, so let's pull that back a little bit. So let's jump down to film grain, and then this is super easy, guys. All you can do is just select from these presets. There's no reason to go custom, I don't think, because these are all the standard film grains that you're going to see, right? So we want to go a little bit finer. We'll go for a number like 65 millimeter, something like this. That's going to make the grain much finer, much less obtrusive. Now, let's say I'm happy with this, right? And I have the film stock that I want. I have everything I want. The grain is where I want it. I can also go in and add some halation, some bloom. Let's try that out since we have this sun back here. You guys can see when we enable the halation here, it's very subtle, but adds a bit of warmth to the light, adds a bit of softness to that sunlight. Very, very subtle. You guys can see it as I kind of toggle it on and off here. Very cool. And I'm sure as you work with different footage and different lighting environments, indoors, outdoors, dark contrasty footage, bright overexposed footage, this is all going to have different effects, right? If I go and change the bloom and the halation on a dark, moody basement kind of tungsten lamp shot, I'm sure that the effects would be much more pronounced. But since this is just like bright outdoor sunlight, you're not going to see those little subtle things like that. That's what you have to do with a thing like this, guys. Get in here, tinker around, play around with all these different effects. Let's say we have everything where we want it, right? We have the film look, everything's good to go. Now, how can we go ahead and add a little bit of warmth? How can we go ahead and add a little bit of that glow so we can kind of match what we have going on here with the color grade we had previously? What if we wanted to match this? So in that case, that's where I'd actually jump into my white balance, and then I'd go down to the tools here, and I can adjust my white balance accordingly. You can see as we drag over, it'll add that warmth and kind of change our scopes up a bit. And that's really kind of replicating exactly what I had over there. Let's not overdo it because we can be a little more specific now that we're doing everything from scratch here. And you can see the difference. I think this looks really good. It looks much more vintage, much more filmy, much more Hollywood-like. This is a little oversaturated to me now, having looked at this first. And you can see here is really one of the things you're getting that you're not going to get with your traditional color grade is baked into your color grading now is film stock. You have a film look. So that might not always be what you want. And in those cases, you wouldn't use it, right? So it's not going to be a color grading thing that you use no matter what. Could it be? Yes, but it's not built for that purpose, you know? You could just select your film stock and whatever and kind of turn all the grain completely off and get it as like denoised as you possibly can. You can do that and get a much clearer looking image, but that's not what it's made for. It's made to emulate film. It's made to look vintage. It's made to look kind of creamy and soft and have that like that muddy kind of filmy look. Whereas this is much clearer and sharper, right? But all in all, I'm very impressed with how professional the results look, and it really wasn't that many steps that were all that complicated. Is it something that you're gonna have to kind of repeat and remember? Yeah, definitely. You're gonna have to kind of get your hands dirty a little bit and go ahead and grade some footage and probably spend a few weeks really mastering the platform and understanding what all these different effects and sliders and stuff are gonna do. But once again, I wrap up with basically my concluding thoughts. This is way easier than a 15 node tree, okay? This is way easier. Setting up something like this and going straight into Dehancer. If I wanted to get a film look for something like this, and I really like wouldn't even know where to start or what to do if I wanted to make this footage look like film here. And even though I can just drag and drop this on and it's like preset and ready to go, if I wanted to add a film emulation kind of look to this complicated web of shit that I have going on here, I really wouldn't know what to do other than like hop over to the edit page and throw on like a film grain effect from the effects tab. But that sure as hell is not nowhere near as intricate as you can get with Dehancer, choosing between all the different film stocks and all the different film profiles that have existed. Kodak, Fujifilm, you have Rolly film profiles in there. You have Polaroid films in there. You have everything. So it's really cool. I know a lot of people that like that old film kind of vintage style. They complain that the digital stuff, they can't find something that replicates it properly. You can get close, but you'll never properly or truly replicate film with a digital camera. This is as close as you can get, especially the fact that I'm shooting on a Blackmagic camera, a Blackmagic Pocket 4K. That camera is known for just looking creamy, vintage, just fucking beautiful film look right out the camera. So now I can really, like, I have the full setup here to just be a complete, like, film emulation machine. I've got a Blackmagic camera, I've got DaVinci Resolve, and now Dehancer, and I can select between exactly which film profiles I want. This is really cool, and this is gonna upgrade my color grading for sure. I'm excited to do some, like, short film style projects and things like that. This is going to really give me that look I'm going. Because when it comes to cinematic work, all I want to do is like 70s, 80s, 90s looking stuff. I'm obsessed with when movies were shot on film. I love that look. I think those are the best movies. All those like cool mob movies and stuff like that, Goodfellas. Like, I want my stuff to look like that. That is just so sick to me. And now I have this tool where I can literally go and select the exact film stocks that they used for that movie. So like you can see how this gets really intricate. And if you're a bit of a nerd about this kind of movie cinematic stuff, you can really like replicate your favorite director, your favorite movie looks very precisely. Now, there was another question I had asked kind of myself and you guys earlier that I want to bring back up. What is the difference between this Dehancer and the film look creator that is built into DaVinci Resolve? Well, I'll quickly sum it up for you. This is way more feature packed and way more extensive than the film look creator. And you can actually in Dehancer, like I said before, select the exact film color stock and profile that you want to use from the known manufacturers and known stocks that people have been shooting out of their cameras for 40 plus years. And you guys saw before, I mean, just look at this list of different film stocks. Like that's insane. The film look creator doesn't have that. You can just select between like a couple of like presets, like 5 to 6 presets or something that emulate these, but you can't pick the exact film stock, right? There's just like kind of like these filtered looks, almost like an Instagram filter. Think of it like comparing an Instagram filter to like doing a real color grade to a photo on Lightroom, right? This is the Lightroom approach, whereas the film look creator is more of like the Instagram filter approach. So hopefully that clears up the question. I know I'm the one who asked it, but I wanted to clear it up in my own head, and hopefully it cleared up for you guys too. So the final consensus, is Dehancer worth it? 100%. I think it's worth it if you are interested in replicating film style movie looks, right? That's not your thing, then you really have no business using this. Just stick to a standard color grading procedure or use the film look creator and just disable the grain because that'll be much easier. However, if you're a bit of a cinemaphile and you're a bit of a nerd about this stuff, this is what you want because you can really replicate the exact film look that you're going for better than anything else. If you want to make digital footage look like film and you're not using Dehancer, the hell are you doing, man? And don't forget to check the description down below for the discount code to Dehancer because by the time you're watching this, that should be there. See you guys later. Peace.